Welcome to episode 33 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of March 1st, 2023. My name's Logan Plant, and I'm joined today by Chris Shriver.
Hello!
You've got a haul of stuff to show us later, Chris.
I do.
I'm excited to see it.
Broke.
Uh-oh. Well, that's
as they say.
And also back for his second week. We didn't scare him off after his first episode in the boardroom. It's Justin Coreyes. Hi, Justin.
Hello. Hey, guys. Good to see you.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
We've got an exciting show ahead this week because there are two Nintendo games out within the last week that I'm very excited to talk about. It was a great week for, I guess, physical collectors. You digital folks have been playing Metroid Prime Remastered for a little bit longer, but we finally all got our hands on it last week through the physical version, so we'll be talking about that. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is out, and I've been playing a ton of that and excited to get into it. We'll talk about Nintendo confirming it's not going to be at E3 and a lot more. But let's start with Metroid Prime Remastered. I've told it on this show before. I have never finished Metroid Prime, one of my biggest Nintendo sins, and it all has come down to the control scheme. I tried both on the Wii version and on the GameCube version, and I loved the atmosphere, the level design, the puzzles, the gameplay. I just hated the controls, and I couldn't get past that. And now that Metroid Prime Remastered is here, I think this is on the fast track to becoming one of my favorite games. I get the hype now. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I think that the new control scheme really is... I feel like it was a big caveat to recommend the original. Before it was like, it doesn't control well. And now there's just no caveats to recommending against this game. It's like, no, it's $40. It controls great. It's probably the best looking game on Switch. Like, there's just absolutely no reason not to go play this. And Justin, I know you've dove into the remaster a little bit. What are your thoughts as someone who is a fan of the original?
Yeah, so I was playing GameCube when the original came out, and it was the best looking game on the GameCube, and it's amazing to me that it is now the best looking game on the Switch. It's absolutely incredible what they've managed to do with it. And you're right, the updated control scheme really does fix the largest pain point. I actually played through Metroid Prime again via Metroid Prime Trilogy last year, busted out my Wii U, hooked it up, made sure to download it.
Busted out your Wii U? It's not still hooked up? What do you want?
It is. So, all right, full disclosure, I got a new TV, and then I totally redid my entertainment center, included like digging out my old consoles, making sure they're all like ready to rock and roll. So like if I want to run down and play like, a Wii game right now, I can. Nice. The playing through it again, it still looked pretty good. And the control scheme was a big detractor, though. It was very much a product for its age. The Halo style twin stick shooting was still relatively new, and the GameCube controller wasn't well suited to that kind of control scheme anyway, so it made sense with what they did originally, which was effectively just lock-on based combat, and kind of the old school one button is like all of your like moving around controls. I was blown away when I downloaded Metroid Prime Remaster. Shocked, absolutely shocked by how good it looks. I can't believe a Switch game looks that good. It's mind blowing. And yeah, the updated control scheme makes it so much more playable, and it's great because it frees you up to focus not on the controls, not on trying to manage how like that lock-on based control works, but you can focus on the game, and it's great. And if you're a nerd like me who loves lore and scanning and moody atmosphere and like dope visor effects, it's a dream. This game is it's yet again a 10 out of 10, and probably a top 5 game on the Switch today.
Yeah, and I think that something you just mentioned really speaks to me is like I didn't feel like I could fully appreciate the game before just because of its controls, but now like I am just fully absorbed in the atmosphere of this game, and I think one of Metroid's strong suits has always been atmosphere from the very beginning all the way up to Dread and now this. I think that's always been one of its strong points, and it just really is incredible here. And it's like you take an incredible design, level design, world, everything from the original, and then modernize it with visuals and controls, and it's like, man, this is a top 5 Switch game. I think pretty easily from what I've played so far. Like,
yeah, and what's really amazing to me is the way that everything and every level is purpose built, right? so many levels fold in on themselves, and there are so many, even like the very beginning of the game areas where you go past something and you won't come back there till like the end of the game, because like not only is it a new power up or something you need to get there, it's something that occurs really, really late. And so it's this like sort of like a pretzel that just weaves in on itself, but it's all so well thought out and well mapped out. Honestly, I don't know how they pulled it off, and it's something that even nowadays, where we see a lot of good Metroidvania type games, I don't know that people can do it very well. And the thing that I really, really appreciate it is how well it immerses you in that, right? The world, like you'll show up in like this snowy level, like the Fendrana Drifts, and like there's things flying around
I
and
just
the
got
music
there.
changes.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. It looks incredible, and you can just like stand there and vibe, because even for something that came out on the GameCube, every area feels like you are visiting it. You're the interloper. Like that existed before you got there. That's going to exist after you got there, and so the sense of like wonder is palpable. It's absolutely tremendous. And so like every time you get to a new like biome, right? Music changes, enemy changes, the looks change, and it's the sort of thing that keeps driving me to go further and further and further, because even though I've seen these things before, I want to see what they look like now in this gorgeous remastered version.
Yeah, and something I really appreciate about the game is I think it still feels like a GameCube game. Just there's a lot of kind of things from the time that I think, I mean, not saying it's like feels old, but just like to me, GameCube games have this very distinct vibe and style and design, and this really radiates that. And the GameCube's like one of my favorite systems, so I'm really enjoying that about it. And then something else that kind of hit me the other night when I was playing is like, man, the last Metroid game before Prime was Super Metroid. Like I can't even imagine at the time. And Chris, I want to hear from you on this. Like playing Super Metroid, and then they take the whole formula and just seamlessly transition it to 3D. Like that just must have been mind blowing.
I remember, and I think I've told this story on the show. I've definitely told it other places, but when the Xbox came out and Halo came out, and that was like the killer app, and it was kind of that like what Super Mario Brothers was to platformers, that's what Halo was to the first person shooter. It was this aha moment. And then Metroid Prime comes out, and I remember being worried about it. Like I was constantly comparing it, because like, the C stick was always a little bit weird on the GameCube controller. It's probably the only flaw that it has. It's just the placement of it and everything like that. And you end up not even using it for, dual analog stick control, obviously. But I remember trying to convince my older brothers like why this was such a good game. And it's for all the reasons that Halo isn't. Like Metroid Prime is very much you are in complete isolation. It is about you being in this place as yourself, like as Samus Aran, and you are absorbing like the environments around you. You're scanning, all these biomes and all the life that's around you and enemies. Whereas Halo, it's like it's not that you're like an on rails type thing, but like you are kind of along for the ride of like you're playing as Master Chief, and there's a lot happening around you. Metroid Prime, it's like you are impacting the world directly, which Halo doesn't really feel that way. And then you obviously didn't have the multiplayer aspect and things like that. But I remember you either like gave Metroid Prime a chance, and this is why I haven't dipped into it yet, because I picked it up the day it came out physically. But with everything that we have going on, like I started playing it in bed for like 10 minutes the one day, and I had this moment where I was like, I really want to just give this the time and attention that this game deserves. Because when I did play it originally, I remember being like, all right, I'm locked into this for like 4 hours, and I'm totally like sucked into what's happening. That's where I think most Metroid games tend to shine, is when you can give it like that much of your attention. It's not something that you just want to like bop in and out of from time to time. It's one thing if you like, maybe you do a biome here and there, for each play session, but, and then you get to Fendrana Drifts, and then it's like, okay, it's time to work. I'm just going to leave this on and listen to the soundtrack in the background and the vibes. But yeah, it's an incredible game.
Yeah, I've been playing in handheld mode pretty much exclusively, and I just adore how it looks on the OLED. There's something about the visor effects, like when it's raining in the first area, it just looks amazing, or when there's steam on the visor in a really hot area, or seeing Samus's reflection after you fire a charge beam. Like, there's just these amazing effects that I think look really, really nice on the handheld screen. And it's just so cool to me because I remember all that stuff from the original and how cool it looked. And like now, 20 plus years later, like other games aren't really doing that. Like there's plenty, like Halo, you're in the visor.
Not standard. Like it's incredible. It is so immersive for it, and it's funny. So in Halo 4, some of the creatives from Retro who made Prime ended up there, and you see that there are like visor effects, things like that, and it's so.
But it's the only one that does that. I think,
it's the only one that does that, and it does so much to make you feel like you're inside the suit, inside the armor. You know, you are Samus, you are Chief in that one, and it's a crime that other like shooters don't do that. We have so many like dude bro space marines with like helmets on. Like, come on, guys.
Although to be fair, like imagine Doom with that effect on and like everything that you touch just blood splattering. Like, you can't even see anything.
As soon as the game starts, you can't see. You're just covered in blood.
Every enemy you're just wiping.
Well, you know, so you know what game did do something that like that was Republic Commando, who I think also had some staff overlap where like you would stab like some of the robots and they would like spray oil all over your visor, and then this little like laser windshield wiper would clear your vision. How is a game this old, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, so far ahead of immersion that we see nowadays? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's insanely cool. And honestly, playing this, I'm like, I don't think I would have blinked if they charged $60 for this. Like, I really don't think I would have.
No.
But I'm glad they
easily
did.
Worth it. Yeah.
It's been selling like crazy. The physical version's been selling out. It's been sitting at #1 on the eShop since its debut. Like, I think this is pretty quickly going to pass Dread to be the best-selling Metroid game again.
Go ahead.
Are we finally hitting an era where Metroid sells well and starts becoming a pillar franchise of Nintendo?
I think so.
I was talking to my brother about this because he has a Steam Deck. It's the only console he has at this point. And it was like, it's kind of insane how like these sales numbers are at this point. And I was like, think about it. Metroid Prime came out on the GameCube and then the Wii, and how many people probably pirated it? Like, how many people pirated Metroid Dread when it came out, and now are like, all right, we're taking this if Nintendo's going to take this franchise seriously again, we will as well. And I think that's what you're seeing happening, is that there are so many Switches out in the wild at this point that so many people, whether they borrowed it from somebody or they watch gameplay on YouTube, like there is this legacy behind this game. And with the success of Metroid Prime and other Metroidvanias that we've had over the last 5 or 10 years, like it's kind of insane to think that now it's finally picking up steam. Whereas, like, you know, you go back to that Super Metroid conversation from earlier and that jump. Part of the reason they didn't make it on the N64 was because they were like, well, it kind of works, and you know, it wasn't a good enough leap. And I think they knew that sales were going to be that soft, or were going to be soft for it.
I'm definitely glad.
Death of the creator also. Took a long break at the time. But anyways,
no, and I think that's a fair point. Also, I'm glad we didn't end up with a Nintendo 64 Metroid that looked like Turok.
Yeah. There's one. I think it's a fan made one though. There's like a third person N64 Metroid game out there that somebody was like creating or revived or something. If you Google it, it'll come up. It's like as recent as like the last 2 years.
It's just, when I think about this series, it's just so interesting because the Metroidvania genre really took off through digital eShops when downloadable indies were so much more popular of a thing. And that kind of coincided with the long dormancy of Metroid. Like, it went away for about a decade. And then I think the question always was like, well, if Metroid comes back, is it going to stand up to the Hollow Knights of the world and what these other creators are doing? And with both Dread and Prime Remastered, the answer is yes, absolutely. Like Nintendo and Samus are back, and they're kind of back on top of this genre. I think that Metroid Prime's just a phenomenal video game from what I played so far. And this is not even the new one they've been working on for the last 4 years. Like, they're making another one of these, and that's super exciting. And I think that we're going to see a Dread sequel, a Metroid 6, whatever you want to call it. The next 2D entry, I think, is definitely going to come based on Dread sales success. And it's like, I think hardcore Nintendo fans have always kind of considered like Mario, Zelda, Metroid, right? Those are the big three. Those are the big three, like tentpole, top shelf, like super high quality Nintendo series. And it's like in sales, that's never been the case, and it could start to be trending that way. And I think that's something really exciting for a lot of people.
Agreed.
The one thing on that I will say is that I go to the Nintendo World Store once every like year or two, and I'll talk about what I got and everything later. But this was the first time that I went that they had more than just a T-shirt for Metroid. Like they had multiple pieces of merch that they were selling, and like it's a little dedicated section. It was like, wow, they're actually trying to push this again and see how it goes.
Yeah, now's the time with a 120 million install base, the most relevant they've ever been. It's the time, man. It's really cool. And yeah, I'm just amazed at this game. One thing I really like is what I found a lot of times in this game is if I get to an area where there's an item that I don't have yet that I need to progress, there's also like a missile upgrade in that same room. So on my first visit there, it wasn't for nothing. Like I get there, I'm like, oh, I need the spider ball. I don't have that yet to progress. Oh, but I see this little morph ball puzzle with a bomb that I can just do real quick to get a missile tank and then leave and then come back once I have the spider ball. And something that's been frustrating for me in a lot of Metroidvanias I've tried is just like, I don't know where to go. I'm running into all these dead ends and there's no reward for these long stints of playing. But I feel like Prime is always rewarding you with energy tanks or missile upgrades or just little things like that to file away to come back to later in a way that's been really, really satisfying so far. Like, I just think its design is just amazing, and I'm really enjoying it.
I also think it has a perfectly implemented hint system where it will let you go on your own and explore and figure it out for a while. And if you get into trouble, you get into trouble. Best of luck. But eventually it'll say, hey, by the way, weird readings over in this area, and it's just going to drop a little marker over there. It's not going to give you a dotted line to follow. It's not going to hold your hand. It's just going to say, hey, you got to head to Magmore Caverns or whatever. There's something going on. Maybe you should check it out. And then it leaves it up to you to decide if you're going to go there. And but it's enough of a nudge where if you're completely lost, you can start looking at the map and figure out, oh, here's routes to get there, and then it puts it back on you to keep things moving forward if you want to, or you just keep exploring.
I actually turned the hint system off, so they're not giving me one ever. Yeah, but
Nice.
I do remember that from the original that it was nice. But I'm trying to go hintless on this run. Also, just make it last a little longer because I want to keep playing this game. But yeah, super good. I'm glad that this version is finally here, and I'm glad I held off because there was a lot of like last year when I picked up the original, I played it for like 3 hours, and I was like, I'm liking this, but I feel like I'd like it more if a remastered version comes out.
I'm so happy for you that you didn't play through it then and you waited for this, because this is going to be such a better experience. It's going to give you such a, I think, better feeling for what the game is, because you're not banging your head against archaic controls.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, like I feel like the people that are playing this for the first time now with Twin Stick are going to feel the way that we felt about it 21 years ago when we played it for the first time.
I am feeling like that. I'm like, oh my god, this is seriously one of the best games I've ever played. And I'm only like 5 hours in, but I'm like, this is seriously one of the coolest Nintendo games they've ever made. Like, I think when you're talking like Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Super Mario Brothers, whatever, Super Mario World, Metroid Prime, like it's finally, I get it. And I've talked about this before.
Proud of you.
The Metroid series has been one that's never clicked with me until Metroid Dread was really the first time it did, because it's, again, I don't think Samus is very fun to control in any game prior to Metroid Dread. Like, I just don't think she feels very good in Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion. Like, when you're like holding like L and R to try and like aim up and down, like it's just a little stiff and awkward. And then Dread, it just feels great. And I finally get it. It's like, man, remake every Metroid game. Like, remake Super Metroid looking like Metroid Dread. And once again, I'd be like, well, now I'm playing one of the best games of all time that I've kind of missed out on before. So yeah, it's just like one of these pillars of Nintendo that finally, and also I think part of it's getting a little bit older too. Like, Metroid games aren't super kid friendly, so when I was trying like in middle school to play Metroid games, I'm like, I just don't get it. But I think as I've gotten a little bit older, it's Yeah, more
Especially
details.
Prime. Like there's so much scanning in it. And if you let yourself do all that and like really immerse yourself into like just the biodiversity in those games, like it really does it expands the world a little bit more.
I just like that we've established that there's a direct correlation between how high you wear the belt on your pants and how much you like Metroid. As soon as you hit like old man level, you are all in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I asked a question at the end of last week's show, which is of Mario, Zelda, and Metroid, which franchise has the best combo of 2D and 3D games? So we're talking Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening, Odyssey, and there's some debate, Mario U Deluxe or Mario Maker 2. You take your personal pick. And then Prime Remastered and Metroid Dread. I put out a poll on Twitter at ToadstoolBR, which got about 40 votes. So thanks for voting in our poll. And the winner was Breath of the Wild and Link's Awakening at 48.6%. Second place was Prime Remastered and Dread at 43.2%.
Wow.
And then way at the bottom was Odyssey and Mario at 8%. So tight race between Zelda and Metroid, but I asked you guys to kind of think about what your answer was. So who wants to start here? Who's got their pick?
I have mine.
Okay,
Go for it, Chris.
Okay, so as much as I like Super Mario Odyssey is my favorite game of all of those games, depending on the day. Right
really,
today, if you ask me,
I would have guessed it was Zelda.
Yeah, depending on the day. I'm in a Banjo-Kazooie mood lately, so
Okay.
yeah, it's the closest I'll ever get to Banjo 3. Yeah, exactly. But I really don't like Mario U. I told myself it was a great game when the Wii U came out. I think it's fine. And Mario Maker 2, I like the idea behind it, but I've never found myself getting sucked into it the way that I think a lot of people do. The only thing that has come close is when I forget the guy's name, but he made Super Mario Bros. 5 and then posted that. And the problem is he updated it and then it wiped your save, and I was like halfway through it, and I was like, well, I'm never playing this again. So I can't in good conscience go with that. I was gonna go with Zelda, but because Breath of the Wild obviously is just, I'm not going to wax philosophical about Breath of the Wild, but because of Link's Awakening's performance issues alone, and I think the face dungeon in that game is terrible. It's like that section of that game is so infuriating that like it brings it that many notches down. But for me, it's Prime and Dread. Like the excitement that Dread brought to everybody in like the Metroid Nintendo community when it was announced, and I mean how hype everybody is over Metroid Prime Remastered is like really exciting. The fact that the two of them have just kind of like revitalized this the series, and I consistently like go back to Dread just to run around and like do a few sections and dip out. While I haven't played Remastered really yet, other than the first 10 or 15 minutes, I've played Prime I don't know how many times. Like,
yeah, it's
one of my favorite. Yeah, I know it's there. I know what I'm getting. Yeah, I got to go with that.
All right, one vote Metroid. How about you, Justin?
I think that poll laid out exactly correct. I think the Zelda combo is number one. I think the Metroid combo deserves, though, to be right on the heels of it. And I think that Mario combo deserves to be a distant third. I think Breath of the Wild is the greatest game of all time. I think it's the best game ever constructed. We've established that. Link's Awakening, even with its issues, is so unbelievably weird and imaginative and crazy in all the best ways. I love the updated art style. I love how it looks. I love how, not to, I don't know how much I'm going to like spoil a remake of a 30-year-old game, but when so much of the experience is so surreal. You see things, you see like chops, you see like
Shy Guys, Goombas. Yeah.
You see the gates from Super Mario World in certain points. Like it's incredibly surreal, and somehow in the ending, they make all that make sense. It's incredible. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's a handheld game. They're just throwing stuff. They're just reusing stuff. And then you get to the end, you're like, no, actually, this was all like a fish-powered fever dream. And so, of course, it was bizarre as hell.
Uh-huh.
Incredible. Absolutely mind-blowing. And so I think that Link's Awakening is in the running for one of the greatest handheld games of all time. And the remake, yes, there's some minuses to it, but also like the fact that it became so accessible and it looks so damn good, I think is worth it. Very few games, I think, belong in the same echelon as Breath of the Wild, but Metroid Prime does, and that's what makes it so tough and so close. It's like if there's a video game Hall of Fame, there's also like an additional wing that like the other games like have to buy like tickets to get into, and like these games both belong in that rarefied wing. So it makes perfect sense that it pushes it. And I think similar to how great Link's Awakening is, I think the fact that Dread had this legacy of Metroid games that, frankly, I think we were all nervous about whether or not it could live up to that when it came out, especially because the last handhelds we saw were Super Metroid and some incredible like GBA games. We're ignoring,
Returns, which everyone forgets about.
Yeah, and we're going to ignore the really bad like multiplayer one. We're just going to pretend that never happened.
Oh yeah,
Federation Force. What?
Yeah,
do you mean?
yeah. We're gonna ignore that. But like somehow it nailed the tone. It nailed the feel. It very easily could have just been released in line with all those other ones because it's the exact same quality. It deserves to be there. Mario Odyssey, I think it's an all-time great Mario game. I think you can make the case it's probably a top 5 Mario game. New Super Mario Brothers U, take it or leave it. It's so extremely meh. And the thing that drives me crazy about that is, I mean, a lot of people liked it, and if you like it, great. It's fun, it's cute, it does some really cool things. But Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario World changed gaming. It does not hold their water. It doesn't hold a candle to the games that came before, like the Zelda and Metroid games did. Yeah. So, if we were to rank all these games, I think you would have like a cluster of like 3 games at the top. You'd have a little cluster in the middle, and then 50 miles away would be New Super Mario Brothers U, which is like just a fine game that happens to have a plumber and some Goombas.
Yeah, I think that it's tough. Mario U does get a really bad rap. It's a really good 2D platformer. Like if you can't do this, but if you did remove it from the confines of Mario, you're like, yeah, that is in like the top third of platformer games. Like it's really good. It's a really strong game, and it has New Super Luigi U in it, which is awesome. By the way, where every level is 100 seconds.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Hard as hell,
but it's the worst game on this list, and I think that does drag Mario down. And Odyssey is,
but it's also
on this list.
It's also up against like some of the best games ever made. Like
it's not the worst game on a bad list. It's the worst game on a good incredible list, right?
Yeah. On 5 of the other best games on what I think by the end of its life cycle will pretty definitively be Nintendo's best console ever. Like it's up against some stiff competition. But also Mario U, I think that when it came along, people were just like, oh my gosh, another new Super Mario Brothers, because we just had 2. We had Wii and we had the original. If this was like the first new Super Mario Brothers, like Mario U Deluxe, I think people would look back on it much better than they do. It's a really good game. The multiplayer is fun. Some of the power-ups are cool. Like I like the flying squirrel suit that you get in that one. It's cool. It's a cool game. But yeah, it's 6. But then Odyssey for me is 1, but I can't pick Mario because of its 2D counterpart. And man, I had a hard time choosing.
That's how I feel
between these other 2. And I didn't even finish Metroid Prime. But I ended up going that I think that right now, I think the Metroid combo is the strongest. I do, because I think the Dread is better than Link's Awakening. Even if Link's Awakening ran perfectly, even if it ran at solid 60 FPS, which, by the way, Dread does. It looks brilliant on the Switch. I still think that Dread is the better game. And then from what I'm playing of Prime right now, I think I might end up liking it more than Breath of the Wild, but I've said it on the show a million times. I'm a weirdo. I don't love Breath of the Wild that much like the rest of the world does. But yeah, I'm going with the Metroid combo for right now. Right now, we're all hopped up on Metroid, though. We'll see if that changes after I finish Prime and we get some distance from it. Also, Tears of the Kingdom is going to be better than Breath of the Wild, so it's going to be replaced. Its slot's going to be replaced by the end of the spring. So we'll see. We also got some comments on Twitter, though. Timbo says, this is a super hard poll. Went with Metroid, though. Not knocking New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe and Link's Awakening, but the Metroid games are just so consistently amazing through and through. And that's the least expensive combo, too. That's true. With Prime at $40. And then Zach says, I'm not sure there's a wrong answer here. You could easily justify a vote for any of the three. And then Brian, who we all know very well, says Zelda, and it's not close. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it's not close. I think it's very close. Zelda and Metroid are neck and neck. I think
Brian,
what you pick.
Brian famously does not like Metroid Prime.
Whoa, and Nita, I know he doesn't like Odyssey.
And he doesn't like Odyssey at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so that's why it's not close. I think it's very close.
Well, so now we see Brian has no taste.
I think what we learned from this whole exercise is that 2D Mario needs its moment. I think that's what we learned. Mario Maker on the Wii U was awesome. It never hit for me on the Switch. Like, it's been a long time since 2D Mario has gotten something totally new. And I predicted it for this year. We'll see if that ends up being true. But I just think that it's time for that area of Mario to get some love. Because, like you were saying, Justin, Mario 3, Mario World, still amazing games today. We don't have a memorable 2D Mario like that since
nothing
the
like
90s.
That. Yeah, nothing even close.
What do they do, though? What do they do with the new 2D Mario?
I mean, that's their job, not mine.
They'll figure it out.
yeah. I mean, we could make an entire block out of that conversation because I certainly have thoughts. You know, the thing that makes Mario World and 3 work so well, I feel like, is not only is the platforming like impeccable and perfect, but it's so full of secrets and mystery and things that, you know, an overused analogy, but like you would talk about, you know, at recess at school and you wouldn't believe somebody because like, no, there's not a secret world in the sky. What are you talking about? Go back to second grade. Or like, you know, hidden whistles that we only knew about because of a Fred Savage movie. Like nothing like that. We doesn't even come close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need a new 2D Mario. I want to see whatever they're cooking up for it next. But yeah. Let's talk about another series, though, now, which I think, after this last weekend, has a very strong 3D and a very strong 2D entry, and that's Kirby. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe is here, and I have played about 8 to 10 hours already of it. I'm playing it with my girlfriend. We just sat down over the weekend and just started plowing through this game, and this has actually always been my favorite Kirby since it came out. I think that playing it in multiplayer is just the best 2D Kirby experience there is. I like Forgotten Land. I wasn't as high on it last year as I think everybody else was. I think that I've said it before, I think that game kind of shows its hand in the first two worlds, and then there's not really many surprises in the second half of the game. But Return to Dreamland Deluxe is just always throwing new stuff at you. Its collectibles are very clever and really well hidden. The backgrounds just look really, really nice, especially now in HD on the Switch, and the multiplayer is just what sells it. Like, it's just super fun to run through those levels. And then there's those speedrunning sections where you, after you get like the Ultra ability, where Kirby gets like a giant sword or a giant flame or a huge beam or something like that, you're hunting for a portal to this like alternate dimension level. And then if you find it, you go in there, and then you're speedrunning through this section where the wall is closing in on you. And it's like, there's actually a little bit of challenge, which you can't say about most of the franchise. So there's just a lot here. And I think that this was the one I wanted to come back because it was a late Wii game. Not very many people played it. Like, games that came out in the last 2 years of the Wii's life sold like crap. Like, nobody bought those. People had put those cords in the drawer and were only playing with HDMI cables from this point on. So this is one that I think really deserved a second life, and I'm glad I got it because it's just excellent. And the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about here with this game is that Return to Dreamland Deluxe proves that Kirby is better than any other Nintendo franchise at one specific thing, and that's celebrating itself. I think that the Kirby franchise, there's so much love for its history in pretty much every entry they put out. And what this one does is that there are like 100 collectible masks of Kirby characters from the NES days all the way up to the present that you earn through the game's minigame mode. There's 10 sub-games in this, most of which are also brought back and modernized from Kirby's history. And by playing those and completing challenges in them, you unlock stamps, and when you fill out a stamp sheet, you earn a mask. And that mask can be like Marks from Kirby Superstar, or it can be like one of the characters from Planet Robobot, whose name I don't even remember, but they do, and they're in there, and it's just incredible. Like 100 might even be underselling it. There's like 150 plus masks that you can unlock in this game to wear of Kirby characters, and so Kirby will just slip on a Chef Kawasaki mask, who is my favorite Kirby character, and then he's just running through the level wearing this mask, and it's a totally new feature to this game, and it's like, man, the Kirby series has just always been, I think, really good at celebrating its history, which you can't always say the same about like Mario or Zelda even at their best. Like Kirby got that anniversary collection on the Wii that was totally fully featured, and then for Mario we get like 3D All-Stars, which was very bare bones, and it's just like I've always been impressed with the Kirby series for that reason.
So, how exactly does multiplayer work on the Switch version?
Yeah, so it's up to 4 players, and you can be Kirby Dedede, who now has his Forgotten Land design, where he's like a little bit buffer, a little bit angrier looking, or Bandana Waddle Dee, or every player can be another Kirby. And basically the camera follows the first player, and what I think is really good for families playing, like if parents playing with their kids or older sibling playing with a younger, is that the level only ends if player 1 dies. Like if Pink Kirby dies, who's player 1, you go back to the most recent checkpoint. But if player 2 dies, they can just pop back in like they do in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe or something like that. And I think it's really cool because I'm playing as player 1, and so it's like, all right, pressure's on me. If I die, we're going back. But then my girlfriend, who is not as versed in platformers, she plays games like Animal Crossing, Spiritfarer, things like that, and so she's not as good as platformers. If she dies, there's no pressure because she can just pop right back in. So it's really cool, I think, for that. It's a smart way to do it, that I'm getting a little bit more of a challenge as player 1.
It's good that you can also play as just different color Kirby's as well. Like that was my biggest problem with Forgotten Land was
exactly.
Like, we would have played that entire game start to finish in co-op, and then you couldn't do that. You were stuck as Bandana Waddle Dee, and you know all you had was that little spear. It was kind of lame.
Yeah, I think it would get really tiring. Because Kirby's fun if you dump your ability every time you see the next one. And it's just like, all right, I'm moving on to Beam, I'm moving on to Hammer. And there's all these little classic Kirbyisms, like if you fight a mini-boss, you know that mini-boss's ability is going to be needed within like the next 15 steps to get a collectible or one-up or something. So just always dumping whatever you have and getting the next one is always super fun. And something this game actually adds, though, it adds 2 brand new copy abilities, which are not from the original, and that is the Sand copy ability, which is kind of a mix of Leaf and Tornado. It's like you create sandstorms. One really cool thing you can do is if you charge it up, you reach out with this like Sandman-like fist that like grabs an enemy, and then you can like suplex him. So that one's pretty fun. And then there's Mecha, where Kirby just goes full Gundam and is just flying around infinitely, shooting lasers, dropping grenades. Super cool. And they're just totally new, and they're in like a good chunk of the levels, but they're never needed. They didn't change any of the puzzles in the levels to revolve around these new abilities. They're just kind of there, and it's a fun new thing to freshen up the game, because I've played this game like 4 times. Like I've played it with a bunch of different people through 4-player playthrough, solo playthrough, 2-player playthrough, and so it's a nice little change to have these new copy abilities in here.
Where would you put this? Like, if you had to rank Kirby games, where would this one fit?
I think it's the best one. I really do.
The best one, the number one.
Yeah, I think that this is
the very tippy top.
Always been the best Kirby game. I think it's been really underrated for a long time. I think that, it just has really nice challenges, really good levels, memorable bosses, and the multiplayer. It's the best version of Kirby multiplayer, because Star Allies, everybody can't be a Kirby in Star Allies. The second, third, and fourth players play as the allies that you recruit. So they can still use different copy abilities, but they don't have the inhaling ability, and they're just not Kirby. They're like Poppy Bros Jr. Like, who wants to be Poppy Bros?
Nobody wants to play as that.
Yeah. And the level, I've never liked the level design in Star Allies, and it's very short. There's like only 4 worlds. So for me, when I was thinking about like great 2D and 3D combos for our question earlier, I'm like, man, now with this game plus Forgotten Land, like those are 2 of the best platformers on Switch to me. Like, they're both very good, and like I said, I think this one just is better throughout its runtime than Forgotten Land. And yeah, there's other Kirby games that are great, like Superstar Ultra on the DS, I think would be this one's main competitor. The Superstar remake that added even more games than this NES one had. But yeah, I really think this is the best it gets for Kirby. So yeah.
So for the next Kirby game, would you rather see them return to 2D or keep exploring 3D?
Yeah, I think that I'd like to see a sequel to Forgotten Land because, I mean, we generally see original games as proof of concept and then go crazy in the sequel. And I think that a Forgotten Land sequel could be absolutely phenomenal. So I'm ready for a new 3D entry, I think. But man, this and Planet Robobot is another.
I was going to say, no Planet Robobot?
Yeah, I think those are my three favorite Kirby's are Superstar Ultra, this one, and Planet Robobot. Not in that order, but yeah. And then Forgotten Land's kind of on a tier below, but yeah, I also want to talk about the sub games real quick because that's always kind of a highlight for me of the Kirby games is when you take a break and go and play some of the mini games, and they're really, really good here. There's like 11 of them in this game. Usually there's
Did
like
they
2 or
add
3.
more?
Yes, and they're all
this
from
one? Yeah.
They're all from Kirby history. There's 2 new ones to this game, and then there's like 9 or 10 from past Kirby games. And what's super cool is that, like I was talking about Kirby celebrating its history, after you complete all of the difficulty levels of a certain subgame, you unlock a secret bonus track for it, which is just the original soundtrack of that minigame. And I've played the entire Kirby series, so it's like, oh, press L to hear the hidden song, and I press it, and I'm just like transported back to like 2005 playing Kirby Squeak Squad on
So they just weeping, just
yeah, but just super cool. And then Mario Party Superstars had this amazing detail where the little victory chime after a minigame came from the game that minigame was from originally. So like you win a Mario Party 2 minigame, you hear the Mario Party 2 victory theme. This game does that too, but it takes it a step further where its results screen is basically ripped identically but modernized graphics from that original game it was in. And it's just like so cool. Like, man, when I saw this game was getting ported and was going to be $60, I was like, what are they going to add? And if you played this and liked it, like this one is absolutely justified a double dip because there's so many more mini games. The new copy abilities are fun. And then there's this mission mode that I mentioned where every mini game has a sheet of 10 missions that it wants you to do. And it's like, beat this mini game on extra hard without falling off once. And that is a challenge that most kids aren't going to be able to do. That's for us. That's in there for us to like really actually like, they're tough. There's some tough challenges in there you have to complete. And when you do, you're rewarded with the masks. And then I finished all 100 challenges. And when you do that, you get 25 more. And it's like, they're even harder. So there's a ton here to keep you busy. And then there's even a whole epilogue that I haven't even touched yet because you don't get it till you beat the game. That's like 20 entirely new levels. So yeah, I'm super impressed with this package. I thought I was picking this up for like a nostalgia play. Like, oh, I really liked this when I was a kid. I'll like it again now. And that is true. But like, man, it's the best Kirby on Switch. And I don't hesitate to say that.
Do they have the hot potato game?
Is that
from Nightmare in Dreamland
where you're whacking the?
Yes.
Yes, they have that one. It's in there.
That was so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that one has this move where it's like, so you're hitting like an egg and a bomb in a circle, and it has this move where you can switch what hand you're holding the frying pan in to hit it back at the person who sent it your way. And one of the challenges is win by exclusively doing that move, the switch move, where you send it back. So it's like going rapidly fast by the end, and you like have to swap hands and then hit it back really fast. And that was a super memorable one. But yeah, that's a good game. My favorite one though is from Crystal Shards, the 64 game, which is where it's kind of like Hexagon in Fall Guys. Like you're standing on this square platform, and when you hit A, you send out this like energy wave in front of you, and it knocks down all the blocks on the row in front of you on the grid. And so it's just 4 people wandering around this grid trying to knock each other off, and that one's super, super fun. So yeah, it's outstanding. It's seriously one of my favorite Switch games now. Like I didn't think that was going to be the thing, but
that's high praise.
I love this game.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's the best Kirby. Try it out and see. You guys have plans to pick this one up at all?
I will when the living room is done and the TV is set up. This is probably going to be the first like co-op game that the two of us get into.
Yeah, I think this is firmly ending up entrenched in my backlog.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. So between Metroid Prime and Kirby, I'm like, man, that was one of my favorite weeks for Switch ever last week. Like I picked up these 2 games and I was just having a ton of fun. And then the last thing that came out, talking about a ton of games this week, is Splatoon 3's Season 3 Fresh Season is what it's called, is now live. And the Inkopolis DLC is here. That comes with 2 new battle stages, the Umami Ruins, which is a new stage to Splatoon 3, and the Manta Maria, which is returning from Splatoon 2. It takes place on this like giant colonial ship. Very cool. And then there's 2 new special weapons, the Kraken Royale and Super Chump. The Kraken Royale is returning. You transform into an enormous kraken, a squid, and you can roll around and do damage. And the Super Chump is a new special. And what this one does is it has fake super jump spots showing up. So your rivals don't know where you're actually going to land. Because it's like, oh, he's landing here, and then you show up somewhere else and flank him. Both really cool additions. There's a new King Salmonid and Salmon Rod called the Ouroboros, making this the 3rd Nintendo game in the last year to reference the Ouroboros, joining Xenoblade 3 and Zelda. So make of that what you will. Don't know what's going on over there, but they're all talking about it. And another really cool thing is it added a jukebox to the lobby where you can pay 100 coins just when you're warming up before your match and pick any song off the soundtrack to play. So
that's cool.
Yeah, super cool content adds. I played on both maps earlier today. The new Umami Ruins is very cool. It's like this excavation site at these pyramids. Umami, mummy. Get it? Nice pun there, guys. But really cool map there. One thing I appreciate is it has like these cranes all over since they're doing like construction to build this battle stage within the world. And some of the cranes are blocking on other maps what would be really good sniper outposts. So like it's not a sniper's paradise like so many maps in Splatoon 3 kind of turn out to be. So I really like it for that. And then Manta Maria is cool also. Takes place like in this big port with a really cool city backdrop and the ocean on one side. So yeah, I've been saying it since it came out. Splatoon 3 is like the most fully featured multiplayer game out there right now. So yeah, if you're complaining, I see a lot of Destiny players being like, oh, this new expansion, isn't it? Well, Splatoon 3 is. Let me just...
Man.
The new Destiny expansions never are when they first come out.
Yeah, don't get me started on this one. Oh, man.
All right, so I'll ask you about Splatoon instead. You like Splatoon at all, Justin?
Yeah, I do. I played a lot more of 2 than 3, although I did buy 3. I think we talked about it. I can't remember if it was you and I talked personally or looking at the previous show, but I love the world of Splatoon. Like, you might notice a running theme. I like uncertainty and like unclear and frankly a little bit like haunting, which is what the world around Splatoon is. And so when we saw the DLC announcement and you could see, I think, what looked like a destroyed Eiffel Tower and things like that, I'm like, oh, hell yes, let's do this. Yeah, I'm super in. And I will say I am amazed by how well, when Nintendo wants to continue like upkeeping a game, they do. Like it's these updates are huge. I am extremely excited for the next update, which seems to be a little bit more story focused and all that. So like, yeah, no, it's great. I wish you didn't have to buy both to get either. I wish you could pick and choose, but
you don't want a lobby.
Yeah, it's also not that expensive though. So
yeah, Octo expansion was $20 and this is 25. So I've kind of like, they're making you pay $5 for this lobby. Which I did, and I visited today, and I ran around, and I was like, "This is my lobby now. This is where I'm going to go now." Because it's just laid out a lot better.
Splatoon the way it's meant to be.
It is. Yep.
Splatoon 3's lobby is very big for the sake of being big.
Yes, which is cool, but like,
I'm also here to play a game.
I like walking into the doors of the shops instead of just opening up the menu and picking which shop
hitting
I want to
L.
go to.
Yeah,
but in Splatoon 3, I don't even know where they are. Because there's like, oh, this one's on like the 3rd floor, way the heck over there, and this one's down low. But Splatoon 1, they're just like in a strip mall. And so in this Inkopolis, the new lobby in Splatoon 3, you can just roll into whatever one you want. It's just laid out much cleaner. So yeah, that's Splatoon 3's latest update. Got to jump back in with me, Chris. We haven't played in so long.
I haven't played anything in so long.
We got to play Splatoon 3. With some fourth rando.
Honestly, it's a great time. Like when me and Logan and Odell would hop on like on Discord and it's so much better when you have a group of people.
Yeah. And that's something I've noticed about the game is like it has gotten to that point where I can't really play alone anymore because the only people left playing are groups of friends playing together.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's for hardcore people, Yeah, the thing that I always appreciate about it, though, is like I've always found it to be a really good game to play with my kids because it's the sort of game where even if you're not good, you're not
contributing.
Very good. Exactly, you contribute, right? You can run a roller up and down the map, and you can take things over. And so, like, even if you're still learning how shooters work, it's really good for that. But if you are skilled in shooters, the shooting mechanics are tight enough and reward skill-based play enough that you can also be a significant difference maker for your team. It's a really good mix.
Yeah, we should definitely set up a Boardroom Splatoon play session soon. But that's all the games out this week. That's a ton. Metroid, Kirby, and Splatoon 3's first wave of DLC. And they're all great. Well, the DLC is what it is. But the new maps are really great in Splatoon 3. So let's get on to a couple of news stories we have for the week. First, we shouldn't spend too much time on this. Nintendo confirms it won't be at E3 this year. They said in a statement, "We approach our involvement in any event on a case-by-case basis and are always considering various ways to engage with our fans. Since this year's E3 show didn't fit into our plans, we have made the decision not to participate. However, we have been and continue to be a strong supporter of the ESA and E3." So this just means Nintendo will have no presence on the show floor. It does not mean there will not be a Direct in June or July. It's just...
Right. They've done this before.
It's always gotten muddied where it's like, oh, they're not going to be at E3, so no Direct. No, those are separate things. Those are very separate things. Like, Xbox technically wasn't a part of the last couple of E3s. They were in the Microsoft Theater across the street and still had a big show. So we don't know what they're going to show, but the original report from IGN a month ago said Nintendo has a lighter second half this year, software-wise. So they weren't coming to E3 because they didn't have much to show. So I want to ask you guys, what do we think this means for the second half of 2023? And does them skipping have anything to do with a hardware reveal? What do we think? Chris, you're shaking your head.
I don't know. I want to believe that they're going to show it in like September, October, and then do the spring release just like they did with the Switch. But at the same time, like, how many years have we going on YouTube and every freaking YouTuber is out there like, oh, Switch Pro news, here it comes. Like, oh, it's coming out this year. It's coming out in 6 months. Well, NVIDIA's making a new chip. Like, we have no idea. I think if they don't have, sorry, my cats are going nuts around me. If they don't have significant more hardware showing or more software showings, post Pikmin 3,
Pikmin 4.
Like I think or Pikmin 4, thank you. If by E3 really, we don't see anything beyond Pikmin 4 that we didn't already know about, I think it's safe to assume that by June of next year, there should be new hardware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I said it after the Direct this year, or this last month. I think that we're getting new hardware this year. And Chris, you especially know, everybody's talking Switch Pro the last 3 years. I have been firmly like, no, it's not time yet. It's not happening.
Oh, but now because Logan says it. No,
but now I think it is. So I'm just saying, I'm not out here contributing to the hype tornado.
No, I know you're not.
I legitimately think it's time. I think that Zelda is the swan song. Yeah, there will be a couple stragglers like Pikmin 4. And I do think in July we're going to get a showcase for new hardware in November. I really actually am starting to feel that. And I think that, I don't know. I think that it's time. I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to come out this fall. I think that it's going to come out on cross-gen, Switch and Switch 2, hopefully is what they call it. But I don't know. I think it's time for that. What do you think, Justin?
I think that sounds really optimistic. And I wish I were that optimistic. If they are going to come out with new hardware, because they have to eventually, I would love for it to be this year. Frankly, I am one of those people who's been saying I desperately want there to be a new Switch sooner rather than later. Yeah. In particular, I this might be controversial. I would happily see Tears of the Kingdom delayed if that meant it launch day and date on new hardware. Because, I don't need 4K, I don't need ray tracing, but if you can like steady 1080p with minimal pop-up and just effects like, smoke and particle effects and things like that, the stuff that the Switch can do, but like even if you played Breath of the Wild now, you'll does chug sometimes, and especially with things like pop-in, you run through a field and then all of a sudden you see the grass, then you see the flowers, denser flora and fauna. I would happily wait for that. So if we see it this fall, that will be exciting to me. I do think we are going to see a lot more. I think, given the number of things that we just saw release on Nintendo, including things like Metroid Prime Remaster, which Shadow dropped, if they didn't have stuff to sell systems in the fall, they would have held some of that stuff. I strongly believe that. The fact that they pushed, Fire Emblem Engage out and Metroid Prime Remaster
And
and
Advance
Kirby
Wars when it is coming out.
and,
Got a busy
and
time.
Advance, and Advance Wars, even though they already have Zelda in the one of the first 2 quarters of the year, that tells me that they believe they're going to do just fine come fall and Christmas time. It's worth keeping in mind, not that this is necessarily what's going to happen, but Odyssey came out the same year as Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild had a big marketing lead up for multiple years, which we talked about on the last show. Odyssey didn't. We didn't have any idea that Odyssey existed until like the summer after Breath of the Wild had come out. It's entirely possible that something along those lines is happening right now. Nintendo is extremely good at being tight-lipped and playing things close to the vest. And I think they're going to have a big fall. I'm also somebody who believes the fact that Tears of the Kingdom is coming out means that we won't see hardware within 6 months of it, because I think if we did, we would see them hold it.
That's where I'm at with it. Like it doesn't make sense. It's too much of a kick in the pants to anybody that buys a Switch just for that game, or buys a new Switch just for that game. Like, let's say you bought one at launch and it's like, you know what, I'll get the OLED. It's been long enough. Like,
I don't know.
I think if it were a handheld console, and I understand it's hybrid, but like if it were a handheld console, you're talking like the 2DS, something like that. Like I'd get that. This is too much of an investment for the average consumer. And
the most expensive Switch game.
Of
all time. Yeah.
And it also, like, you're asking a lot for people. You're asking a lot of people in the last, not necessarily the last year of your hardware's life cycle, but like one of the last. Like, it'd be weird for them to be like, all right, we're dropping like 5 or 6 bangers in 2023. Oh, by the way, the new one's out in 2024. Like, it's very possible. I hope they don't do this, but it's very possible that 2024 is just like a dead year for Switch and we get like 2 big releases.
2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, PlayStation 5. It's happened before elsewhere. I think that you're just expecting them to hold it because it's what they've done the last 2 times.
No, but you know what?
That was because the GameCube,
it's backwards compatibility.
The GameCube Wii didn't sell.
The backward compatibility is what has me with this, because unless they do the same cartridge design, and I don't know how much they care, but
well,
like
a little
if they're
nub on the end, like they did on the NES.
Well, and I think between now and the release of Tears of the Kingdom is when we'll know for sure, because we did have a couple of cross-generational Zelda games, but both time we knew going in before they released that they were going to be cross-generational. I don't think they would break that trend.
And that's what I was trying to say, though. It's because the GameCube sold like crap, and the Wii U didn't sell. And they're like, we're not going to put out this game we just spent 5 years working on to a dead system that's out the door in 3 months with no install base. That's not the case here anymore. We have a Zelda coming out on the best-selling Nintendo console ever besides the Wii, and yeah, I think that they'll absolutely be like, we'll sell the Switches we can in May, and then we'll sell the Switch 2s we can in November.
Just emptied inventory. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense for it to be cross-platform. I would certainly buy it twice if there were new hardware and it ran better. Because, when you release a new system and you don't want it to be a Wii U, you want it to sell really well, you want to put the biggest system seller you can on it, which would be Zelda. I think it would be a mistake to release it without, with basically everybody already having Zelda in their hands. I do think we're due, though. It seems like some of the biggest concerns we've had about things like chip shortages are starting to, at least the pressure is coming off. We're getting to a point now where it seems like presumably you could spool up a really large manufacturing operation to start getting these things out. So I would love to see it, but I think if we don't hear about it by the time Tears of the Kingdom comes out, we're not going to hear about it till 2024.
Yeah, like if we don't get that Wall Street Journal article of like, oh, by the way, they fired up the factory, like, because that always happens with Nintendo hardware. Like, if we don't get that by third quarter, I don't think it's happening this year. Like, I just don't.
I don't think we hear from them before Zelda about it. I think until Zelda, they will tell us about Zelda and little else. And then Zelda comes out so close to E3 anyway. I kind of get why it's a skip for them, because that would be the E3 game, but it's going to be out. And I think there's so much like the mind share around E3 and the conversation about it. I think Nintendo's still going to be a big part of that, just because everyone's still going to be playing Zelda by the time that rolls around. So I don't know. I'll stake my claim. I think this is the year for new hardware, and I absolutely think that we're going to see a Mario game on it, because I'm sorry, in a year where you're launching a theme park in North America and a major motion picture worldwide, they're too smart to not release a Mario game this year. They just are. And I know they've been like promoting Odyssey. I've gotten emails from them all the time, and 3D World is selling really well right now. But I just have a hard time believing that when Christmas rolls around and all these kids are new Mario fans who just saw the movie in April, that there's not going to be a new game on a new console for them to get.
Okay, what game is it? What is the new Mario game?
It's the new 2D Mario.
You think it's a 2D platformer?
Yeah.
Not the Mario movie, the game.
Dude, honestly, why not? Like, I've been wondering that. Like, why not? Yeah.
Just a bunch of Chris Pratt wahoos every time you jump.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I just don't see a world where there's not a Mario game this holiday.
I think there's a good chance that you're right. I don't know how you wouldn't make that though a 3D game, like an Odyssey, like perhaps an Odyssey 2. What if they went to Galaxy 3? I think that you would come out with either something brand new but 3D that does tie into the movie, or something that has enormous cachet built up, like a Odyssey 2.
Galaxy 2 Remastered.
Or
just shows up. All right. I'm sure this is not the last time we'll be talking about this year. So let's move on to our last news topic, which I expected to be the lead topic going into this week, but it was so underwhelming that it fell all the way to the 1 hour mark of our show. And that's the Pokemon Presents from this week. It finally re-revealed Pokemon Sleep after years of it being absent. What, like 2017, I think was when we heard of it first, or 2018? This was the new app that was kind of supposed to be like, we had Pokemon Go, now here's Pokemon Sleep. And it's an app that will track your sleeping patterns, show you different sleep styles of Pokemon. They're releasing what I am dubbing the worst named peripheral in Nintendo history, the Pokemon Go Plus Plus. You heard me right. I said it twice. Pokemon Go Plus Plus is releasing on July 21st for $54.99, and it's going to be compatible with both Pokemon Sleep and Pokemon Go. And then also the Pokemon Go Plus Plus has a Pikachu in it that will sing you lullabies. I'm like, if I'm falling asleep, I don't want a Pikachu to just like give me a jump scare when I'm like
the most high pitched.
Yeah. And then in terms of, and then also you can catch Pokemon at Pokestops automatically with the Go Plus Plus. And then also we got a reveal of Scarlet and Violet expansions. The Teal Mask is coming in fall 2023 alongside the new hardware, and the Indigo Disc is coming in winter of 2023. But that was me editorializing. There was no new hardware announced. It's $34.99. It's up for pre-order right now. They literally did not show gameplay of these. They just showed concept art and a cinematic trailer. Literally no ounce of gameplay shown. It's up for pre-order today for $35. The Teal Mask has players visiting Kitakami, an area beyond the Paldea region. And the Indigo Disc has players attend the Blueberry Academy as an exchange student in a story that's focused on battling. And then also there's 2 new Terror Raid battles, which apparently are filled with issues already. That's for Walking Wake, which is a prehistoric version of Suicune, or Suicune, I don't know how you say it. I've always said Suicune. And an Iron Leaves, which is a Virizion from, I think that was Black and White, which is a new Terror Raid battle. So there was a ton of other stuff at this Presents, updates on their mobile games. They announced Yokohama is going to be the host for the Pokemon World Championships and some other things. The classic version of the trading card game coming back as like a collector's.
I think that is very cool.
It is cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's
very, very stylish.
In tournament, so it's like not tanking the value of.
No, but I love the
cards.
idea of like, if you want to play with a classic 151, you can do that with this set. I think that's very, very smart.
It comes with a cool board also. Like that's included. Yeah. It's not just the cards. That board that was in the trailer, that's a part of this package.
That board used to be, I think it's the same one, unless they, I think it's the same one. The one that would come with like whatever the Pokemon trading card game book was, and like you would have to unfold it and put it out. Use paper. We were children.
Yeah, no spin-off, no new game, no footage of the DLC, no mention of Scarlet and Violet's performance issues. A new patch did come out I played for a little bit. It was not noticeably better. Like I'm sure it fixed some of the like hard crashes and things like that, but just from a pure gameplay experience, it really didn't change anything. But I don't know. I'm pretty disgusted, honestly, that you can spend your money on this today and you haven't seen what it looks like. Because yeah, Zelda, we've seen in-engine footage of it. We haven't seen like here's 5 minutes of gameplay, but the shots we're seeing in the trailer, that is gameplay. And Breath of the Wild's a known quantity. This is following one of the most disastrous launches I've ever seen from a AAA video game, and then they don't show us what it looks like.
Yeah, this is also potentially a known quality in a bad way.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
am I off here, or is that pretty bad that we didn't see anything from this deal?
It's troubling. Yeah, I mean the fact that they didn't show it, honestly, at least based on what we've seen from the games themselves, make me feel like it doesn't show well at all.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's extremely troubling. I'm glad they didn't announce like a brand new game. If anything, the expansion is evidence that this game is still being worked on, or these games are still being worked on. So hopefully they can get them to a fit state. But like, man, it's a tall order, I think, asking people to spend more money when you haven't rewarded the initial investment yet.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
If I remember correctly, the Sword and Shield DLC, when they announced that, they only showed footage for the first one. And then the second one, I think it was like a CG trailer where you saw like whatever the next legendary was going to be for that release. Like I would have accepted that even. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason anybody should give their money to the Pokemon Company for this game specifically at this point. What I found interesting while in New York, though, was typically you go there and on the second floor, most or at least half of the second floor is dedicated to Pokemon. And it was a noticeably smaller footprint, and there was very little promotional material for Scarlet and Violet. Like it seems like they turned a corner on that pretty quickly. I think the only promotion for it that I saw, other than like you could buy like the plushies of the starters and stuff like that, was on the outside of the building. They were like rolling the trailer for it, which it must have just been on a loop. But like it's rare to see that in that store.
Yeah, that's weird, right? I mean, this is the largest entertainment property on the planet.
It's the largest, the highest selling Switch game ever.
Fastest selling Nintendo game.
Yeah, fastest selling Nintendo game. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, that's weird. Like you'd think it would be everywhere.
Yeah, but I was disappointed by that whole ordeal with the DLC. Yeah, it's. Didn't show anything.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent a little bit about how great something is real quick. I know we have to wrap. Pokemon Leaf Green and Pokemon Fire Red. The cartridges for these games go for like $100 on eBay at this point, and I didn't really understand why. I think you made that comment last week, Justin.
Yep, I did.
I started playing Leaf Green, and there are mechanics in this game. I'm only in the first like town that you get to. Some of the mechanics that they have in this game are so brilliant, and I don't understand why they don't exist in other Pokemon games. Like the fact that I turn it on and it goes, oh, the last time you played, you visited the Pokemon Center and you talked to Professor Oak and you battled a guy and now you're here. Like, why isn't that in every game? Why didn't, that should have just carried throughout the franchise.
Not even just every Pokemon game. Every game.
Why doesn't every other game just have that?
Dragon Quest XI has that, and it's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few other games have done that. Just previously on, especially Pokemon games. Like we treat them like they're for kids, but they're big, meaty RPGs. Like they're long, detailed games. Yeah, especially if you're a completionist who is trying to catch, as close to all as you possibly can. Like that's a lot of time investment. It's not uncommon to step away and come back and then be like, oh my God, I have no idea why I'm in this town or where I'm going. Somebody help me out here.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I want to talk about the last thing here on Pokemon for me. The Pokemon Go Plus, I think, was the a top 10 biggest missed opportunity in Nintendo history. It was this peripheral that didn't come out until like 3 months after Pokemon Go had blown up back in summer 2016. And then it came out in like October and it was impossible to find. They didn't manufacture very many. And the Pokemon Go Plus was actually distributed by Nintendo. This was kind of the main arm they had in Pokemon Go because this was a Niantic and a Pokemon Company game. And I feel like they're trying to rectify that because Sleep's coming out in the summer. And then they have this Go Plus Plus coming out on July 21st, and I'm just here to say I don't think it's going to happen, guys. Like I just don't think it's going to happen.
You think that ship has sailed?
Yeah.
They're just trying to keep that game alive by any means that they can at this point. And I get it. Like, it's changed a lot since it first came out.
You know what's funny? So I saw somebody at my work literally today walking by with the Pokemon Plus.
The original, the watch.
The original.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so like some people are still on it. So
mine's in my basement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, your poor Pokemon have all died out.
Yeah.
Mummified remains in there somewhere. Yeah, I will say I am like weirdly a little enthusiastic about Pokemon Sleep. I'm kind of amazed that it still exists. I thought it was potentially going the way of the vitality sensor. But like these weird, silly little quality of life things like are really cute and really well done. Like my kids loved Pokemon Smile. We hit that every night for a long stretch. One, right? Yeah, exactly. It was like it's just a toothbrushing mini game using the camera to like coach you through toothbrushing. Something like this. I think gamifying Sleep could work. It could end up being at least for like a couple of weeks a fun little like bedtime diversion.
Anything that helps you develop a healthy habit is a good thing.
Yeah.
And especially a kid if you can make them look forward to it.
There was a funny line that was, it said, a game to make you look forward to waking up in the morning. I was like, oh, that's brutal. That's brutal.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. I look forward to waking up in the morning. Thanks to Pokemon Sleep.
Yep.
All right, Chris, you want to do a rapid fire update on your trip to the World Store or delay it to next week?
I can do it real quick. Okay. I've got everything here. Nintendo World Store. I got many things. I got Diddy Kong. He's on top of the CRT now. Stuff for the baby. I got a little spill mat that's
adorable.
Has all the
that's amazing
little Mario stuff on it. And then they have these books. They have a Pokemon ABC book.
Nice.
And then a Pokemon counting book.
Awesome.
And it's like, how many Squirtles are on the page? And we're like, well, we have to get that. Hold on.
He's been practicing with it. He's almost got the counting down.
Yeah, he's up to 80.
Yep.
Next week he'll be at 100.
Then Chris will start working on his ABCs.
Yeah.
Because it was in the wash.
Well, that's a cool bag. That's like my favorite Link render. It's not from any actual game, but it's just what he looked like for a while, like Smash 4. And then it's still on like the $50 eShop cards.
So every time we go, this is the bag I get. But this time, because I bought so much, I also got a really big Donkey Kong bag. That's really, really cool. I never want to get rid of it. I got these for my nieces and nephew. So there's Peach.
Peach plushie.
Koopa.
Nice.
What we got? My one nephew was like, I want a bad guy and a good guy. So he got Boo.
Gotta get Boo.
Gotta get Boo. We also got a Boo that I put with our Halloween decorations. And Fire Mario.
Nice.
Yup.
And then I got new sweatpants. If you're in the market for sweatpants, these are the best pair of sweatpants I've ever owned.
New sweatpants, you.
Yep. And this is my new favorite hoodie.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That
incredible.
Nice.
You got this little
16-bit Metroid is on it.
16-bit Metroid's on it on the sleeve.
A little Samus sleeve?
Or sorry, yeah.
That's cool.
And then Samus is on the sleeve, and then there's Metroid on the back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's also the same material as the sweatpants, so when you drape yourself in the tri-blend, it's just like
living the life.
You feel like, all right, I'm never leaving my house again.
The king of town.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty great.
Nice haul.
Yeah.
All right, we got a wrap to an end here this week. Another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom in the Bookstore Weekly Nintendo Show here Thursdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, talking about all the weekly Nintendo news games and plushies and sleeping, Pokemon Sleep. Look forward to our impressions coming up this summer. You can find the show on Twitter at ToadstoolBR. Email us toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. You can find Justin online at...
on Twitter at KOREIS.
You can find Chris at...
Drives93.
You can find myself at Logan J. Plant. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week. And we'll catch you next time right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.